Darkness has fallen, but the light exists within. It's something borrowed. Number 3, heading into winter, wrapping up warm with a poetry blanket. We've got some good times coming ahead. Step on in.
Please welcome back to the stage, Harry Baker! How did he do it? How did he afford the smoke machine? We'll never know. Are we rolling, Ed? Do we need anything else? Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. Something Borrowed, episode 3. What a joy. Like all great trilogies, there are 3 of them. But like all the best trilogies, we will ultimately make more, even though no one's asked us to. So I'm so excited to bring on my special guest. But before I do, I will share one of my poems just to get this half rolling. And this is something old for me. It's one of my oldest poems, but I've been doing it a lot this month because the 6th of October was National Poetry Day. And I know what you're thinking. Poetry is for life, not just for a day. However, there has to be a reason for some schools to force their kids to listen to poems. And it's mostly been a good time. There were a couple of less excited students, and it reminded me of something that happened with this poem, where it was the first time that I was back in a school in person after lockdown, so my first time in over a year physically in the same room as students. And it was the first time they'd all been allowed in the same room, so a lot of nervous energy, wasn't sure what to do, and thought I could do this poem because it's a poem we can all get behind. It's a love poem, but also I wanted it to be cool, so I put dinosaurs in it. And fairly early on in the poem, something unexpected happens, and this student expressed their delight at this unexpected, surprising thing by loudly exclaiming for everyone else in the room to be able to hear, "What is this shit?" And it is amazing how quickly I found myself nostalgic for a mute button. But I would say, by and large, in person is the way to go. So I wanted to share this poem with you, partly as a celebration of being in a room with people who I don't think are going to shout that at me, but also if you did want a fun sort of sub-game during the performance, if you'd like to imagine which point you think a 13-year-old would exclaim such a thing, and then maybe just sort of give me a sinister wink or nod. I want to say I love you, but it seems it's not enough. Because when people say I love you, it can mean a lot of stuff like I'll always have your back, or I'm glad I'm not alone, or to be honest, I'd say anything so you'll hang up the phone because I'm kind of in the middle of something right now. And these Doctor Who box sets ain't gonna watch themselves. I want to say I love you, but it seems it's not enough, because when people say I love you, it can mean a lot of stuff, and all I'm really trying to say is yep. I want to love you like a T-Rex with a tiny brain but a massive heart. And if I was a T-Rex, I could hold you in those T-Rex arms from harm, because that's dinosaur love. It's the way that you send spines down my spine like a stegosaurus, or how just like dinosaurs, no one cares what came before us, because I got that love so big it cannot be ignored. Like if you were the dinosaur, everything else seems secondary. Dinosaurs are not mythical creatures, they are legendary. Plus, they're just really cool. I mean, the thing with dinosaurs is dinosaurs are kind of awesome. More than that, they actually existed, just my love is real. I ain't talking blindly walking, strings attached like Theseus, that's Minotaur love. When this is dinosaur love, this ain't no damsel in distress, trap princess, dragon slaying quest, because 1, dragons never happen, 2, most women don't need rescuing. Sort of feminist dinosaurs. This is less prancing unicorns, more 2-ton triceratops, or terrifying pterodactyls tearing terror from above. It's dinosaur love, molten rock and meteoric. Trust me, I got love so old school, it's prehistoric. So if you're into Spielberg or hip-hop with a classic vibe, then we could watch Jurassic Park or listen to Jurassic 5. And if you like a bone, then I know a place where we could see him. I'm a lifetime member of the Natural History Museum. I want to say I love you, but that might be awkward. So instead, I'm happy to that state in my head where it could not go wrong. And if, as time goes on, my dino love dies out as you'd expect when it's extinct, or rather that we remain friends then became exes. But if, somehow, against the odds, my dino love proves so colossal that it stands the test of time, perfectly preserved like a fossil, then one day, when you've been left in ruins, I need someone to help excavate through them. It won't take an archaeological expert to point you towards me. At that point, I will point out you're like a brachiosaurus because there's no one above you. Then I'll be able to look you in the eyes and say, thank you. Thank you so much. Are we ready for our featured act of the evening? That is what I like to hear. I, for a while, did a monthly night in Canterbury, and when I did that, I asked lots of people locally who were the poets I needed to book, and there were two names that kept coming up. One was friend of the show, Helen Seymour, and the other was the fantastic Neelam, Saredia-Brayley, and I'm so excited for her to come and perform for you, for me to get to listen to her, and also especially because this first section involves some kind of flip chart, and that is something I am absolutely here for, something the video watchers will enjoy and the audio podcast people can just imagine and wish that they were here. So can we please put our hands together and welcome to the stage the fantastic Neelam, Saredia-Brayley!
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. That was so beautiful, and I love dinosaurs more than life sometimes. All of my jumpers except one have dinosaurs on them, and thank you. That was great. Yeah, great. This is Adrian, everyone. He is an artist and my creative partner, and we are married and in love. And so this is something old, and it was one of the first flip chart poems that we created. So sometimes Adrian does live drawing, and we use also like paint and puppets and all sorts of things. But for this one, it's really special. Adrian has pre-drawn the images, and so we'll be choreographing, flipping them. But yeah.
Pre-drawn in 2016, maybe?
Yeah,
Like
I think so.
Old.
It is old.
It's getting vintage.
Yeah, it is. Great. We didn't have we never settled on a title for this one, but we will just say the Old Man poem. And it's old, about an old man. So there you go. Great. Things change when you get older. Sleeves get baggier from hoodies to wrinkly green cardies with the confetti of tissues hidden but ready to be stealthily whipped out to catch a grandson's runny nose. But he didn't have a grandson's nose to hold. Things change when you get older. Houses gain rugs of dust, become muffled, ears plug up, and the stairs creak in sympathy for his knees. When he was 18, his hands trembled as he unbuttoned her shirt in the dark. Now he's 80, and his hands tremble in the dark just because. When he was 18, he collected bottles from nights out, built a mountain of cork and memories. Now his bottles have plastic child safety caps with words he has to read through glasses of cough syrup brown. But when things got confusing, he walked with her down the high street and into charity bookshops and antique fairs and cafes that do 2-for-1 senior citizen discounts. And when that was too much, they took shelter from the busyness in the park. And she still peered at him from under her eyelashes, although they were silver now. They grounded themselves on that bench, worn hands holding each other, worn bench holding them together under apple blossom branches that held up arms and shielded them from the noise and traffic and problems. And her heated hand on his cheek turned his brain fog clear, and he could smile again with pink gums that held false teeth tight like promises. And when she leaned over, her crow's feet vowed to stay perched on the bones of his shoulder for this day and the next and the next. She took all things with her when she died. She had loved his mouth, so took his smile, had loved his voice and left him with silence, had loved his eyes and kept the glint. Have you ever listened to a ticking clock? Have you ever noticed that it gets louder and louder and the seconds start lining up like matchsticks to burn in rows, and you start feeling sick, like a safety pin that's been stuck in the pad of your thumb and someone's closed the other end. And you start feeling sick like the moment when you turn around in the sea feet barely touching the bottom, and you're already swallowing the waves of salt. The seconds crash together, and then nothing. The clock quietens and is barely audible, and you find yourself on the floor, struggling to slow your breath for some reason. Grief affects time in the strangest of ways. The minutes were shaved off and scattered across the carpet. It built up, and when he started having to wade across to reach the bathroom, he left the house. Through the noise of the street, his feet led him to the park bench, and he sat down. Hands not knowing what to do, so they fell to his knees, and he was a boulder, and the bench was a boat washed up against the rocks, and he felt too heavy to ever balance. But the sun roasted on the spit of the sky, and the sky was blue glass bright, and the brightness made the birds sing, and the birds made the children laugh, and it made it so much worse. How could the world keep going when she wasn't there to hold it? The seasons crumbled into blankness. Then there was a thing. A grey mop snuffling near his feet. It smelt of pond water and had no collar. The old man looked around, but there was no one searching worriedly or heading his way to apologize for the intrusion. One hand on his knee, the other on the bench arm, he lifted himself up and started to walk away. The mop's pink tongue stuck out and followed him. He grumbled but slowed his pace, apple blossoms beginning to bloom behind him. They got home, and as he opened the paint-thin door, the mop shuffled inside first. He grumbled and opened the door wider. He made a bed of blankets and put the chicken he was saving for his sandwich in a bowl with some water and went to bed. The clock seemed to tick quieter that night. In the morning, the man made posters. Found. Small, scruffy black and grey dog. Not very talkative. Likes chicken. The mop watched him from the kitchen table. He grumbled and tacked a few posters on the trees around town and hoped the rain would soak the paper through, or that he'd written his number down wrong. The next few days were tense. The slightest tinny noise or ghost knock made the man jump, which would make the mop jump too, and they were two components stuck to a circuit board, and he forced himself not to unplug the phone. 2 weeks had passed and no one had rang, as usual. Only this time it felt different. The mop had soaked up some of the fallen hours, thick dust and empty spaces, and the man grumbled and placed his legs at an angle so as to not step on his wagging tail. And as they watched MasterChef together, he felt the corners of his mouth turn upward just a bit. When he was 18, his hands trembled as he unbuttoned her shirt in the dark. When he was 80, his hands trembled in the dark just because. Now, he's 83, and his hands tremble as he opens a can of dog food. Thank you, Adrian.
Absolutely stunning. Can we give it up for Neelam, but also for Adrian Saredia-Brayley? Incredible.
Thank you. He is an amazing illustrator and also writer too. And actually, he came up with the last lines of that poem, which I'm not mad about. But I am a little bit mad about because they're very good lines. But yes, thank you. And that was, you know, when you're looking through your old notebooks, this is like one of my oldest ones. And that poem was the one that made me feel sick the least. So yeah, I'm told it's about growth. If you look back at your work and you're like, ooh, then you're like, oh, good. It means I'm doing better now as well. But it's still painful. It's a painful process. Yes, thank you.
You don't want to look back at your old work and think, oh, wow, I've got worse.
Yeah.
So that is the right way around. Can we give it up one more time for Adrian and for Neelam? That is incredible. So my question for you is, what comes first, the idea or the format, if that makes sense?
I think it's the idea first. I usually have some words, an idea of what I want Adrian to do. And then I come up to Adrian and say, I need you to do this thing. And so for that poem, I had the words already written, but I was like, it needs something else. And that's when Adrian picked like specific images in the poem that really stood out to him, and then created those illustrations. And yeah, I think as well, like with the live drawing one, we work on that together. And with that, it's like a little bit of both, but it's mostly like I have the words of like the poem first, and then sort of hand it over to Adrian to like do something interesting and cool with as well. And we've recently moved to films as well, so we're doing some of Adrian's digital illustrations and some archive footage that we just chop up and then put towards a poem, which is a really cool thing to find, like vintage footage that's like available online, and sort of like repurpose it and recycle it to fit with my poems as well, which is really cool. But yeah, I love working with like words and something else, whether that's art or music or dance. Yeah, and that's something I kind of want to carry on with.
Incredible. My other question is, what is it like having your creative partner also be your life partner?
It's good. Yeah, it's really good. It's I think we both tend to balance each other out as well. I think whenever it's like performance time, for leading up to it, I'm usually the one that's like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine. We've got this. It's all right. And then like the hour before, I'm like, is it okay? Is it all right? And then that's when Adrian usually is like, no, it's fine. It's okay. But I think we work really well together. And yeah, it is like, it's really cool to have someone to like bounce off those ideas with and kind of create something really cool and beautiful as well. But it's also a test of patience as well. But yeah, I'm very grateful. And also, it just means I have an in-house illustrator that I can just call whenever I need. So yeah.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank
You up for me doing something new?
Yes,
Fantastic.
please do.
But this poem, it came out of, I think I found lockdown very difficult. I know a lot of people did for many reasons. But one was that I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to think I can't perform in the same way, but what I can do is be at home and write. And I thought this is when I will create many, many masterpieces. And actually, when I then couldn't do that either, I just sort of fell apart in quite a broad way. But this was the first thing that I wrote coming out the other side of that. And it was essentially after having had some therapy as well, and taking that pressure off, it meant that the fun could come back through. Because I think even when I'm writing about more raw or vulnerable things, it is such a joyful act for me to create and to make something that otherwise wouldn't exist. And so you're probably all thinking, what was the hefty, weighty topic you decided to tackle after 18 months of not being able to write? And the answer is, of course, Wellington boots. So this poem is called Wellies. I love wellies. That is a statement of fact. Footwear designed for making a splash. No need for showing off status or cash, no laces or faff, just I like big boots and I cannot lie, these babies got back. On first glance as basic as paying your tax, yet that's still more outrageous than Bezos can hack. They are sensible, functional, playful and fab. Put them up against tennis shoes, it's game, set and match. They just do what they do. No overthink to their thunk. All soul and no tongue, like a Tibetan monk. It's like the Dalai Lama's dabbling as a farmer. They're more concerned with balance than Balenciaga. From barnyards through to festivals, so grand is their appeal. The only footwear guaranteed to be outstanding in its field, while veteran shoemakers may disagree. I think it's worth a mention. It's just a load of old cobblers. So pay him no attention. You could be winging it or wanging it. The welly is the one. If you've got booties on your footies, chances are you're having fun, because any welly-based activity is celebrating life. You don't wear wellies to a funeral. So I might ask you to the mine. They are a statement piece. That statement is, I don't want soggy feet. And beyond that, they can be anything that you want them to be. So to my godson, who's got some all covered in dinosaurs, Or my niece who underneath her knees has nothing but unicorns. As you grow older and the world begins to open up to you, you might expect that it's reflected in your choice of welly boot. Well, for the ladies who are maybe looking for a fun design, I have seen bumblebees or daisies or some multicolored stripes. And for the fellas, if you want to make your mark upon the scene, the options are a fetching black or an incredibly dark green. Because what could be more masculine than blending in with dirt? Like, if you don't see me, you might not see I'm filled with pain and hurt. And if you don't conform to gender norms or simply try ignore them, if you're anything above size 6, you're destined to be boring. Because if they're just going to get muddy, what is the point of even trying? Why have dreams when, just like us, they're only going to end up dying? If you never dip your toe in, then there's no concern with drying. Who needs waterproofs if you can simply stop yourself from crying? I mean, God forbid that one might have a form of self-expression. Why not blend in instead with 1 in 8 that have depression? Why be happy when you could be a statistic or a lesson? Why do anything ever if it starts to make you question? If we protect ourselves from all those risky things emotions do, it can be easy to forget that joy is an emotion too. And so is heartbreak, so is grief, so is happiness and rage, with this whole spectrum that we miss out on if we don't engage. And I am angry. And I've tried so very hard to keep it in. And I am lonely. And I've tried so very hard to keep it in. And I am tired. And I've tried so very hard to keep it in. But we are not wellies made with an impermeable skin. You see, it did not do me good. Stood in a field of deepest green. When it's a basic human need to simply feel like you've been seen. And so even if this world insists it's safer to be duller, I would rather take the risk and live life playfully in colour. Sure enough, last Christmas morning, wrapped up underneath the tree, a pair of size 10 welly boots as bright and yellow as can be. They bring a whole new meaning to saving up for a rainy day, because if the skies are grey, I'll be walking on sunshine either way. And when it's messy and it's muddy and I don't know where to begin, I'd still rather be out in the rain than trying to rein it in. And if I ever go on Dragon's Den, this poem is my pitch. But until then, next time you'll see me as I'm climbing out that ditch. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My related question for you was, if you had to have one item of clothing as a sort of line of merch.
Yeah.
Mine would be wellies now. I've just attached myself to that, and I'm committed for life. What would yours be?
I think some dungarees. Yeah. They're really fun.
Very strong.
And as I'm growing older, I'm like, I really like them for some reason. They're great. But it's like the same energy as well. Also, that poem is so beautiful. That was, stunning. And literally yesterday, I think it was yesterday, in Sainsbury's, I saw like this amazing pair of wellies. And I was like, should I? And I was like, nah, it's a bit much. I've got wellies. They're like dark blue, and they're wellies, but they're not the Sainsbury's wellies, which were like rainbows and unicorns. But it's one of those purchases that you're just like, I could, but I don't need it. But I wanted it.
I think you might need it.
That poem just said everything, so I think I'm going to go back.
Yes, I approve. Amazing. Would you be up for sharing something new with us?
Yes, please. Okay. So my new thing is going to come from my book, which was released this week last year, and it's still new. And as Adrian said, like, you wouldn't call a baby that's 1 year old. So why call a poem and a book? So yeah. So this one is called Deer Watching. It was one of the last poems to be added to this book. And incredible poet Jacob Samler-Rose helped to mentor me, especially with this poem, to kind of like get the feeling of it right. So and I'd love to share it with you. And I've never performed it out loud in public as well, so that's also new. If you'd like to close your eyes, then you can and imagine, but you don't need to. But yeah, it's called Deer Watching. tall tree branch antlers, coiled sinews, amber eyes like flint rock struck beneath cold hands. My palms prickle on the steering wheel, the car hood clicks in the unexpected stop. Thinning pale arms of birch halo him. Gold foil of leaves sift down, landing near silent hooves. His muscles contract under red-brown fur. He clips across white road markings, not breaking eye contact until the other side. Head fixing towards the swallowing woods, thick underbrush parting for his body. He kicks off into the forest, splattering ribbons of mud and brittle leaves behind him. I almost bite my tongue into. Watch the shimmering space where he was. Listen until my heart is the only thing left still galloping. Thank you. And thank you to that extra sound effect that happened at the perfect moment.
How was it for you creating a book? I guess, again, thinking back to the fact that you've worked with arts and music and dance, to have just words on the page, not just words on the page, but to have that as the way that people are primarily taking it in. I know that most stuff I write is with an aim to speak it out loud, so then putting it in a book feels like a separate enterprise. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting. It was kind of going back to things that I'd studied at uni with like structure and kind of coming back to like what that means and how a poem can look on the page. But it was a really cool thing to just dive straight into it. And a lot of these poems are like brand new or things that I've had for a little while that I then reworked for the page. But it was also about keeping my voice as well, so not stripping it down completely. And I read that one because it is quite different to the rest of the poems. I'm very like, the words go on and on and on. But like with that one, it was a bit more like clipped and it's just about images. But yeah, it was a really interesting process. And I think like it is also a hard thing as well to like pick through and have other people look at your work and kind of come back. And I sort of opened myself to different like mentors, and some were helpful and some were really not. But you know, it's still about coming back to yourself and being like, I know that my voice is important, and everyone has like a specific like their voice as well, and it's not to lose that. But yeah, and it was amazing having like before we sent it to the printer, I wanted to get like a draft copy. So in like the upstairs studio, I put like each page of my book just printed and spread out across the floor. Yes. And it was amazing. It was just like, oh my gosh, all of my words. But yeah, but the good thing was as well with a book, it means you can put things into a structure, and I had like a real flow. So the book is separated into 5 sections, and it charts a journey from like the goldenness of childhood into trauma, back out into hope and wildness and reclaiming as well.
I love a book with sections. Just as an aside, I once read The Circle by Dave Eggers, and I was furious because it didn't have any chapters.
Oh no!
So it's just one cute, and I don't like sort of just leaving it halfway through. So if it's got chapters plus sections, that is the dream.
You'll be happy.
You read a bit, you feel like you've earned a break, you have a cup of tea, you come back, and you can just sort of digest it in that form. So I fully endorse that.
Thank you. I've read Ulysses, so
sure.
I just had to put that down there as well. Big thick book with like just a stream of consciousness throughout the whole thing, and it's just like so much. He's like, now I'm eating kidneys. Now I'm putting my snot on a rock. Now my wife is, she's okay, but you know, and it's just that for like ages, like hundreds and hundreds of pages. But I had to read it for uni, and I was like, I will never do this ever.
I've not read it, and I don't want to.
Good, yeah.
But I really enjoyed that summary, and I imagine that's most of what goes on.
Yes.
So I might start quoting that to people. I'll be like,
Please
this
do.
is just like in Ulysses when he puts
and then no one will know.
It's not on a rock.
Exactly. Yeah.
I need to engineer situations where I've got some snot in a rock, but that's fine.
Yeah,
that happens enough. I was speaking to a friend of mine, fantastic poet Vanessa Kazule, and she is working on a collection of essays at the moment, and she was saying what she wants is an editor who is really going to push her and who's going to like tear her work apart and through that make her a better writer. And even her saying that made me uncomfortable.
Yes.
And what I want is an editor who's going to tell me if I've spelt something wrong.
Yeah.
But like, ultimately, I am a misunderstood genius, and it's all going to be okay. And I am so precious and fragile, and I take any feedback really personally.
Yeah.
But it sounds like having different people, even if some are unhelpful, I think sometimes that can help you realize what you don't want to do.
It's just about having options as well. And yeah, I find that approach, a lot of people think that, right, it's something really new, I'm going to break you down and build you up. And it's like, that never works. You just break you down and then you're done. And then, I mean, that's what happened to me. And then I couldn't write for 6 months. So, you know, but then it changed and evolved and I had different people. But like, I think it's really important. Like that's on my Access rider now as well, of just being like, I really appreciate sensitivity. And like, this is what I kind of want in terms of like mentoring, because it's important to tell people sort of like where your boundaries are as well, even if it's like, oh, it's poetry, but it's like, yeah, but it's also, I'm a person. And like, but yeah, it's like, yeah, doing different things, having someone like throw one approach at you is great, but also it sort of needs to be done with like respect and sensitivity.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to read the book.
Thank you.
I'm going to do something borrowed now. This feels heavy, but based on what is happening in Israel and Palestine, I wanted to use this to borrow a poem from Rafeef Ziada, who is an amazing Canadian Palestinian poet, and she wrote this in 2011, and it breaks my heart that it's still relevant. And what has been happening has been awful on both sides, but I was on a Zoom call last night getting updates from people in Gaza, and during that call they found out that a hospital had been bombed and 500 people had died, and the other largest hospital has just had its electricity cut off, and so loads more will die. And to see the rhetoric of our world leaders around this is really hard, and I haven't really had any words, but thankfully other people do. And so this Rafeef wrote when she was in Gaza and she was preparing for a TV interview, and she had learned all of these facts and statistics that she could do, and then the presenter asked her, the first question they said was, don't you think it would be easier if you just didn't teach your children to hate? And that sort of floored her, and so she wrote this off the back of it. And I won't do it justice, but I'll try. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into sound bites and word limits. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into sound bites and word limits filled enough with statistics to counter measured response. And I perfected my English and I learned my UN resolutions. But still, he asked me, Miss Ziada, don't you think that everything would be resolved if you would just stop teaching so much hatred to your children? Pause. I look inside of me for strength to be patient, but patience is not at the tip of my tongue as the bombs drop over Gaza. Patience has just escaped me. Pause. Smile. We teach life, sir. Rafeef remembered to smile. Pause. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians teach life after they have occupied the last sky. We teach life after they have built their settlements and apartheid walls. After the last skies, we teach life, sir. But today, my body was a TV'd massacre made to fit into sound bites and word limits. And just give us a story, a human story. You see, this is not political. We just want to tell people about you and your people, so give us a human story. Don't mention that word apartheid and occupation. This is not political. You have to help me as a journalist to help you tell your story, which is not a political story. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. How about you give us a story of a woman in Gaza who needs medication? How about you? Do you have enough bone-broken limbs to cover the sun? Hand me over your dead and give me the list of their names in 1,200 word limits. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into sound bites and word limits and move those that are desensitized to terrorist blood. But they felt sorry. They felt sorry for the cattle over Gaza. So I give them UN resolutions and statistics, and we condemn and we deplore and we reject. And these are not two equal sides, occupier and occupied, and 100 dead, 200 dead, and 1,000 dead. And between that, war, crime, and massacre, I vent out the words and smile, not exotic, not terrorist. And I recount 100 dead, 1,000 dead. Is anyone out there? Will anyone listen? I wish I could wail over their bodies. I wish I could just run barefoot in every refugee camp and hold every child. Cover their ears so they wouldn't have to hear the sound of bombing for the rest of their life the way I do. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. And let me just tell you, there's nothing your UN resolutions have ever done about this. And no soundbite I come up with, no matter how good my English gets. No soundbite will bring them back to life. No soundbite will fix this. We teach life, sir. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians wake up every morning to teach the rest of the world life, sir. I didn't want to just then ask you a sort of related question about your thoughts on the Middle Eastern conflict, but I guess I was thinking about how in some moments I see stuff as massive as that and think, what is the point of writing poems? And then I come across poems like that and I think it's the most important thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm asking, where do you fit on that scale?
Gosh.
or how do you fit in terms of it sometimes feeling futile or not? Is that something you find?
Yeah, I find it difficult because I think as a poet you want to be the voice as well, and that's really important. I sort of don't want to write other people's stories for them, but then you want to kind of just like make people more aware. And Andrea Gibson, who's a poet I really love, based in the US, a non-binary poet, and they one of their poems was about like my bones thinking that these words don't really matter, and then someone like taking their own life or other like horrible things happening, and then my bones are like, actually, yeah, write these poems, because everyone thinks that they're alone, and then we read stuff and we're like, oh, we're not, it's okay. And it's like that's really important as well, and like bringing people together, and us just hearing that experience, because I didn't know about this poet, and now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go look them up and like see, and that's like really important as well. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be like, oh, I'm supposed to also have an opinion on everything and then be like the one to talk about it on social media and things as well. But also it shouldn't be that it's performative as well, and that you're like, oh, well, I have to say something about this, so I'm just gonna like put my 2 pence in. Like, it's like things that are important, but yeah, I think also like highlighting people who are in these situations who it is their story as well, to like let them, making sure that they can use their voice and giving them platforms instead of like other people, telling their stories for them.
I think as well, in terms of that thing of feeling like you have to, or there's an expectation to have an informed opinion about something, or for a lot of people not even informed, but I think it takes me ages to write my poems. So if I tried to write something that was topical and current events, by the time I'd finished it, I think it wouldn't be. I mean, I say that, an example is I've just finished a song about Greta Thunberg and Andrew Tate that was almost a year ago. And it's a cracking song, but I've still not recorded it or made a video. So by the time it comes out, I think it can sort of celebrate the anniversary maybe of the event, and maybe that's my way of being current. But yeah, I absolutely hear that. Thank you. Are you up for doing something borrowed?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So I want to share, I'm really excited about sharing this. When Harry asked me, this was the only poem that I was like, yes, I'm going to share this, and it's not even mine, but I'm so excited about it. So it's by Caleb Femi. He's an amazing Nigerian British poet, and this is from his Dancing Words film called Wishbone, and it was released in 2018, and another incredible poet, Tembi Mvula, sent it to me and was like, this is really cool. And it's also contemporary dance and poetry and music, and the video is so beautiful, and it's just inspired me like ever since. And so this morning I wrote out the transcript of the video because there wasn't like a written copy anywhere. So that was a bit of a brag, but it wasn't really. But yeah, I really recommend like you to see the film as well, so with the dance in it. But I just wanted to share with you the words of it because I love it so much. So this is Wishbone by Caleb Femi. When the night is purple, any face could be yours. Take a past version of yourself when your mother was a wishing well, father was a rusty coin, and they danced like everything that falls through water looks like it's dancing. And your name was the softest point in a wishbone. Say it and jump into flight, you frail bird escaping out the ear of a snare trap. You cunning, wicked, good. This is the version of you that survives water. Thick air, brick, boredom, the witness to what a hungry night spews up on this estate, Langman, knife man. Stand firm in the legs, molten iron in the belly, keeping your chest a night vigil, so anything mispronouncing your name is blaspheming. Isn't this the version you'd rather be? Climbing out the window on a Friday night, grounded or not, two-stepping till 2 o'clock, until new light hemorrhages through the walls. Ain't this the version? You boy of 1,000 boys who lost his face like it was another boy's, in a supermarket aisle, in the throat of a foreign window, down the drain pipe of icy free. Any face could be yours tonight. Pick. This one says you're furniture to an ICU. This one says, I see you looking fresh to life. No, not to death. This one says, see you tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow, boy.
This is my favourite bit of the show, which is weird because I invite people because I love their poems, and then I get excited when they do other people's. But I think I love Caleb's work. I think dream guests for this show who haven't been on already. Caleb is right up there. It's sort of Caleb, probably Vanessa, and then maybe Robbie Williams, in that order. But I think I hear his voice in his writing.
Yeah.
So to then hear
So
it through
beautiful.
your voice is stunning. So thank you so much for sharing that. Amazing.
Thank you. I had the music in my head while I was saying it. But it's just so beautiful, and it's like everything I want to do and more with dance as well. It's just, that tells like another story through it. But yeah, it's beautiful. And he's written a book called Poor, and it won the Forward Prize, I think it was recently. And yeah, incredible. That was his debut book as well, so highly recommend.
And is the film available online?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It's
It's just
Wishbone.
there.
Come
This
on.
beautiful, glistening thing.
Come on. So for the podcast listeners, I'll post a link in the description.
Yay.
For the live audience, search Wishbone on the internet.
Yeah.
Plus Caleb Femi. Amazing. I've got one more poem to do,
Yes, please do.
and it's something blue. And it's written in blue pen, so that counts. But also, also there is more of a link, and it links a bit to what Leanne did in the open mic. I have been to a few funerals recently, and they were both funerals of people I only knew later on in their life, and I sort of got to love them in that version of themselves, and being at their funeral and hearing people have known them throughout different stages of their life, and there being these multiple versions of ourselves that exist, but also these common threads through of someone having a kind of particular sense of humour or being known for being gentle, and I loved hearing that, and also it's a strange one because a lot of people say that they hate funerals, and I can understand why. And so it feels weird to say that I really enjoyed both of them, but I love people telling each other they love them. And I love that Leanne did that while your friend is in front of you rather than waiting till they're dead. And all of this is to try and justify what I've done, because what I've basically done is I've written a poem planning my own funeral, / what I would like to happen when I die. And I thought if I just sort of put it on record now, then hopefully it won't be for a while, but people can refer back to this for sort of instructions of what to do. Instructions upon my death. Ideally, I would like 100 benches, every single one of them facing the sea. If that's too much faff, I'd settle for the one somewhere in Margate, somewhere you can come and sit and think and be. And I don't need a fancy pot to keep my ashes. Just find a decent spot where there's a breeze. So the next time someone gasps at all the wonder in the world, a part of them is breathing in a part of me. And at my funeral, I'd like there to be sunflowers, a truly inconvenient amount. For I too have spent a lifetime searching for the light, and I don't see a reason why that should stop now. Wear what you want. If it were me, I'd go for trainers or wellies. Something comfortable and colourful to match. For as it was foretold by the prophet Jamie Tart, dress shoes are for muggles and for twats. For the reading, I'd like Erin's poem about final moments. Maybe this poem should be read for context too. For the music, nothing short of a full-throated sing-along of my favourite song, Dynamite by Teo Cruz. For the food, just keep it veggie. For the drink, serve up Negronis. If I pretend to like them, you can do the same. For the wake, if people want to chat, then I am all for that. But just in case, make sure the corner's stocked with games. And don't let anyone apologise for crying. It is honestly my favourite thing to do. Just make sure everybody knows how much I loved being alive. The only thing that I loved more was loving you. Speaking of which, if you are free, then I would love for you to be there. But if you can't because you're dead, that's not your fault. To be honest, neither of us quite makes sense without the other. I still think we'll die together like a cult. And if anybody says I have gone to a better place, that is a kind and very well-intentioned lie. For there can be no better place than in a room with all my friends. Just promise we'll do it again the other side. Side note, let's also do this loads before I die. And by the time it comes around, maybe I'd hate it. I'll live for ages and my taste will change with time. But one thing that I know that I will always find amazing is what a thing it is to live a life. P.S. Let's also do this loads before we die.
Could I ask something?
Yes.
I heard Dynamite in there, but what would be your funeral song? Or one of the songs at your funeral?
So to explain Dynamite, if you don't know it, you're in for a treat on your way home. But it is one of the most wholesome, like, dance club bangers that there is. I think a lot of club songs are about sort of like having sex with someone, and that can be a wholesome activity. But this song, the hook goes, I want to celebrate and live my life. And I think that's just such a nice thing for someone to sort of scream in a club. Yeah. And that extra wholesome energy. One of the lyrics is, I want to do just what the fuck I came here to do. And I think, yeah, that's what I want to do. So that one's in there.
Yeah.
And also, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think I would have Stormzy, Blinded by Your Grace,
yes.
because it's stunning. And also it's the song that me and Grace walked down the aisle to. So sort of assuming we're having a joint funeral after our
Yes,
death.
yeah.
It just feels right. Can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, you
What
can.
was yours?
Although it's also wedding related. So I would have Move On Up by Curtis Mayfield, because it was the song that I was playing when me and Adrian were signing our registry for our wedding. And also it's in Bend It Like Beckham, which is my favourite. But yeah, and that film is set in Southall, where I grew up, like literally on my high street. So I'm like, and yeah, so twofold, but that would be, and also move on up. I don't know where I'm going to be going after I die, but I hope
That would be great.
Yeah.
Again, not sure what your other plans are, but
Yeah,
if
same.
you're sort of in a coffin descending and then it starts to come back up,
Yeah.
that would be huge.
Yeah, it's just a bouncy castle at the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. In time with the music,
Yeah.
incredible.
Great.
Would you go for the 13-minute version or the radio edit?
I think I just do the radio edit,
Yeah.
and then people, if they want to listen to the full one, they can go on their way home as well.
Yeah, I absolutely
Yeah.
endorse that.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Thank
Are you up for sharing something, Blue?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Actually, Nell is an amazing person, and we're talking about weddings and things that go wrong as well. But with this poem, I was thinking about like rituals and ceremonies, and this isn't about our wedding, but yeah, it's just the idea that when people get married, it's like a whole family thing, and everyone's involved as well. So I was thinking about that, and double whammy because weddings, something blue, and it has the word blue in it. So I win. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, union, my last one. We married with coins over our eyes and a red veil over our heads to shield us from early death or buy our way back to each other if necessary. Our matching shifts were blue and white brocade, and stitched neatly into the hem our ancestors' teeth, gifted for good luck. Grandmother walked in procession, carried a quarter of the heavy cloth, her thick gold rings knotted on brown paper hands. She'd been bench pressing bundles of scarves for 3 months in preparation. Grandfather cradled pink blessings of garlands threaded on white string. Throughout the day, he would place more garlands around his neck until his body receded and he became a mountain of flowers. Our parents covered the wedding urn in a white tea towel, cracked it underfoot, then mended it together, filled the chasms with silver. We could only marry when they'd finished, but they'd been practicing for weeks, becoming efficient and artful without losing spontaneity. Our mothers delegated well. Your father sorted the blood from the pottery, mine melted his necklace. With a newly repaired urn by our side, finally, you held 6 arrowheads between your lips, and I used the shafts to make a fire. We threw in our sticks of cinnamon, the spices becoming infused in the veil, honey, smoke, constancy, to be shared later with our mouths, the silver coins cooling on the bedside table, just in case we should need them. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For all of it. Every time I do one of these, I think it's my favourite, and I'm aware that we've got a previous guest in the audience. who
Yeah,
is
don't say.
Not making eye contact, but this was exactly what I needed, and I think, judging by people in the room, they enjoyed it as well. So can we give a massive round of applause for Neelam?
And of course to Harry Baker.
Thank you so much. And he's not here, but he might listen to the podcast. Can we give a round of applause for Will, who runs sports, who opened up tonight, even though he wasn't feeling well. And then a final round of applause for Grace, who took over from Will running the bar.
Yay, Grace, thank you.
And can we give it up for Ed doing the filming? And for all of the open micers and for yourselves for coming out. Wonderful. You are all completely brilliant. Thank you so much. We will be doing this again next month. I just need to wait until Will's well enough to look at his diary. And so then I will let you know. But thank you for coming. Please do come back. And always get home safe. Enjoy your lives. And thanks.
Thank you.